Welcome to Gray Roots Podcast. We are so glad you're here. I am one of your hosts, Kathy Eggers, and we have been putting this into planning for a lot of months. So this day is exciting for us. I'm going to introduce you to your other hosts. First, we have Alicia Warnicki. Alicia, give us a quick intro so they know who you are.
Hello, hello. I am Alicia Warnicki. I am a mom of 3 boys who are now grown men, and Gigi to 4 sweet grandchildren, 6 and under. And I'm excited
I
to
love
be here.
that. And we're going to be talking a lot about that. I'm so excited that you're here too because we're doing this together. Hey, Carrie, tell us about you.
Hey, good morning. So I'm Carrie. I am a mother of 5, 4 boys and a girl. I also am a mother to 3 stepdaughters and a stepson. And then I have also 4 grandchildren, 6 and under.
I mean, look at us. And I am the mother to 8, bonus mom to 2, and Nana to 6, 8 and under, 2 sets of twins in my group. So, listen, ladies, this all came to be because I had talked about writing a grandparent book for Place Go My Business, and I write for parents, and I wanted to write for grandparents. And I had a retreat with some women, and they were talking about the biggest issue they saw was the relationship between themselves and their parents and their children and all of that multi-generational stuff. And then about the same time, you guys, we reconnected. We're longtime friends. We reconnected. Carrie, tell everyone a little bit about how that came to be and how we reconnected and got to here.
So we met each other, over 25 years ago, 25 years ago? Yeah, at church. We were in a similar stage of life with our kids. And then, I think we all went through these just crazy times of our lives and we separated a little bit, but there was always just this connection together as friends. And then I think after kind of the dust settled, we just, hey, Kath, can we come to your lake? If you guys remember differently, there's stuff in there that I don't remember, but
Yep, we planned a trip. We planned a trip to the lake and over a couple of glasses of wine.
Yeah, and talked for a few days. So it was amazing.
And Alicia, what do you remember kind of how that conversation went? I thought it was funny. We switched from children.
Yeah, we switched from children to, I think the big topic was daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws, and just the tension that we felt around that and how much we want to love our daughter-in-laws, but how that relationship is just so kind of tricky. You almost kind of feel like you're on eggshells sometimes because you don't want to hurt their feelings and they want to do their own thing, but you kind of also want to impart wisdom that you have to help them. And that's kind of where that all started going.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was funny because I know if you are listening to this or watching this and you are the mother of young children, you're always talking with your friends about your young children. Well, when you moved to our stage of life, it became daughter-in-laws and grandchildren. So it was funny that we started off as friends about our children, but we moved into this new phase. And then Alicia also is in the travel industry. And Alicia had this, she made this comment about the travel industry and how they handle travel. Alicia, tell them about that.
Yeah, so there is actually a category of travel called skip gen. And what that means is it's becoming a big thing now. And our generation is taking their grandkids on these trips and they're skipping the middle generation of the parents, right? The grandparents want to spend time with the grandkids. So they're taking them to the Grand Canyon or to Florida on a cruise, to Disney, whatever, to have that relationship with the grandchildren. But they're intentionally skipping that middle one, which could be good or bad, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But that is how the term skip gen kind of was introduced with our group.
Yeah, and I know Carrie had looked it up and looked up skip gen, and it was kind of when grandparents were raising their grandchildren. And that happens too. I've got some good friends right now that are raising their grandchildren. But we want to talk about skip gen and kind of how there is this trend of the minute the grandkids are born, the parents get skipped over. They are the middle. It's kind of like the grandkids. You see the funny TikTok videos we've seen each other where the grandparents knocking over their daughter to get to the grandkids or all the things. It's like the adult children become invisible. And when I had my retreat, that was an issue for these moms. They did
Oh,
not want to be skipped over. So we decided that Lake weekend that, you know what, maybe we should just start a podcast and talk about those things, the things that daughters have to deal with, that daughter-in-laws have to deal with, that we as moms of adult children and grandmothers have to deal with. And how do we, instead of divide and skip Jen, how do we bring it together and unite?
Mhm.
And so I'm so excited that we're here to do that. Carrie, what are you looking forward to about this podcast?
Well, I think just kind of tagging on what you just said, like we're not here to say we have it all together and we know all the answers. We're just here to have the conversation. I want to learn and, I want to encourage others to have that better relationship with daughters-in-laws because I want to. And so I'm just thankful that we're here. And also even just talking about it has caused me to be aware of my relationship with my daughter. How do I, and even my own, all my adult kids, like how am I showing up for them? And then also my relationship with my mother-in-laws as well. So it's been just an eye-opening experience for me just to even have this conversation. So I think that is why I want to do this, is just so that we can put this out there and talk about this thing, because it is, like you said, such a big deal within families. And I feel like we just don't talk about it. We just assume, oh, it's just supposed to be this way. And I don't want it to be that way.
Absolutely. Alicia, yesterday in our meeting, you said something or asked a question, and I paused you and said, "Hey, wait, let's talk about this." Do you remember
Yeah.
that question?
yeah, yeah. So because there's such a chasm, it seems, between these our generations, right? You hear about Gen X and millennials and Gen Z, and even like on TikTok, if you look, there are all these almost kind of attacking like different generations and their strengths and weaknesses. And I was wondering, like, is this something that is just now more prevalent because there's this generational divide among us presently, or is this something that's been going on since the beginning of time? Like, and it's just more apparent now because the generations seem to be
Yeah.
very split.
I do think that every generation is a little more feeling and a little more talking than the last. I think, our parents, we talked about nothing. My mom
Nah.
maybe a little. Me, I grew up with Mr. Rogers, as you did if you watched him. And so I am like, my kids laugh at me. We talk about everything. They're like, Mama,
Mhm.
other kids don't talk to their parents. I'm like, I don't care. We talk about it all. We talk about everything. And so I think their generation is now talking even more. So I do think part of it is they feel powerful when they talk, and they are better, I think, this new generation at setting boundaries even than we are. And they're better at expressing their feelings. We have a right to this. We know this. I also think that's been around forever. The newer generation knows everything where the older generation does not. So I think it's a combo. I think it
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's probably always been this way to some degree, but I also think now our younger generation is like, well, we're going to tell you about it. We're going to tell you we don't like it. And we're going to tell you we want you to take a grandparenting class because you sucked as a parent. I don't know, but I think it's a little bit of both. And
Mhm.
what I hope that we can do, I hope that we can use this to bring together, that we can be the middle ground, because we are still in it, right? Well, you guys have your parents, and so you're still dealing with it there, and you have your adult children. And so we're the middle ground. We can be sensitive to both sides. And I hope that we can be the connectors, that we can be the one to say, hey, you know what? Younger generation, don't dismiss wisdom. Wisdom and experience is valuable. It might be different than what you want to do, and that's okay, but don't dismiss. And I think that our generation older, we can encourage them to say, hey, maybe you should listen more than you talk, and give your children permission to make their own mistakes as parents, and not try to always be giving advice that's not welcomed, right? One of
Right.
you had mentioned a
Yeah.
quote. Who was that mentioned a quote about
That's
giving
Carrie.
advice? Was
Yes,
it you, Carrie?
unsolicited advice comes across as criticism. That was from Andy Stanley. And if we are not asked into that space, we are not invited into that space, then it comes across as criticism, no matter what good intentions that we have. It just comes across as criticism. So for us to make ourselves available to be that safe place for them to come to. And also kind of tagging on what you said, like the world is different than when we grew up. we didn't have technology and
Right.
social media and all of that. And that has really influenced this next generation. And so for us here to be open to listening and hearing that things may be different than the way we did it, instead of here's how you need to do it and here's how we did it and just listen to me, like let's listen. And that's kind of what we want to do here is listen to that next generation, be open to that rather than thinking that we know it all and we did it all right.
Absolutely. And we had teased around and what's our tagline going to be? And I love what we landed on. We are all still learning. Because I think that's what I love about the three of us. We don't come at this, and we've been parenting for a long time. My oldest is 40. How old's your oldest, Carrie?
32,
32, and Alicia.
31, 32.
30,
Yeah, so all about the
almost
same age.
34.
I mean,
34.
my
Yeah.
40-year-old was adopted, so I didn't birth a 40-year-old. But anyway, we've been doing this for a long time, and to say here we are, open, we're all still learning. We don't have it figured out. Yes, we've done it for a long time. Man, I did some things pretty great. I'm pretty proud of some of my parenting choices. I'm pretty embarrassed by some of my parenting choices. And I bet we would all say that. And I think
Yeah.
coming to the table to do this podcast to say, hey, you know what? We're just willing participants. We're girls that are willing to have the conversation because we want to improve the relationship with our daughter-in-laws, our daughters, our sons, our grandchildren. And we hope that you will join us along the ride. Alicia, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. This one of the things I have always been very passionate about wanting to be a good mother-in-law. Having all boys, I did not have any daughters, and the saying "son is a son until he takes a wife, a daughter's a daughter for the rest of your life" was just very true to me. And so when I was talking with younger moms, it always came up. Like they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, my mother-in-law is coming, but it's okay because I went to the liquor store and I got like 4 handles of Cheetos." And I'm like, whoa, like, is that going to be a girl talking about me like
Yeah.
that? Oh my gosh, my mother-in-law's coming. Let's hit the liquor
Right.
store. And it just like grieved me so bad. So that when these girls did start to show up in my life with my boys, I always was looking for a way to make small deposits. And I just thought of it like a bank account. Like Jeff and I, our relationship, we've always kind of thought of it this way. Like if you're depositing more than you're taking away, then you're going to be in the green, right, of the black. If you're taking away more than you deposit, then you're in the red, and that never makes for a good relationship. So I was always trying to make small deposits, even if it didn't seem like they were doing anything, right? Just little things here, little things there. I help to really just let them know that I love them, I accept them, I want that relationship with them.
Yeah. That goes back to the skip gen.
Mhm.
You're intentionally not skipping them. Maybe they didn't have kids
Yeah.
yet, but they do now. And so you're already have that habit and doing that and paying attention to what they
Yeah.
need so that you're
Trying.
not skipping over them and just going to the grandchildren.
Yeah.
I
That's
remember,
great.
Carrie, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about making deposits because, Alicia, this impacted me so much. Like, I have thought of that when you shared that with us probably a few months ago now. It's one of those nuggets that I thought, Dad, gum, you nailed it. I mean, because I think, too, when you're making deposits, you're not asking for anything back the way
Yeah.
that you
Well,
explained it. And I think so often, I don't know. I think so often we're guilty, or I'm guilty of, okay, I'm going to do this so that they'll like me, or I'm going to do this so that, I am definitely an Enneagram 2 that but just to say, hey, no expectations. There's no expectations. I'm just going to make these deposits because you're in my life and I care about you, and whatever happens, happens. But I am going to be intentional about putting in the work. And Carrie, you mentioned the other day leaving your daughter and grandson. Just a little thing you did, I think, because of Alicia's making deposits story. Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. I mean, we need to be aware of this anyway, but I got so wrapped up in just the grandchildren and saying goodbye and hugging Roy and, loving on him. And then because of this, it's made me, not that I wouldn't have before, but it's made me more aware of go over and hug Carly too. Tell her I'm going to miss her too. And, let her know that she's important too, because she is. And the grandchildren are an addition to the family that was already here. So that was
I
a
think
way
that's a
that
great point. Yes, they're
Yeah.
an addition, not a replacement of. I mean, I
Mhm.
think it's kind of the joke, right? I mean, I've heard people say, I mean, I love my kids, but I never knew I could love anybody like my grandkids. And I just don't agree with that. Like, my kids are my kids. I love my kids. My kids trump everyone, even the grandkids. I'm so sorry. They can be loved the most by their parents, but my kids are my babies and they're my first. And I want them to always feel that way, even when the grandbabies come along.
Mhm.
So, Alicia, what about you? I want us to close. We just wanted to intro this podcast. So that's all this is. It's just say we're here. This is what you have to look forward to. What are some things you're looking forward to us talking about? Because we already have some things planned. Do you have a topic you're like, can't wait till we get to that?
Yes. And it kind of piggybacks on what I was saying just with the small deposits of just managing those relationships with the daughter-in-laws. Especially, I think it speaks especially to me because that's all I have for girls is daughter-in-laws, and just how to make that balance work. When am I stepping in too much? And when are they kind of maybe I feel smothered, right? Is the mother-in-law like Chef is always telling me, Alicia, your mouth, your mouth. It's either your biggest asset or your worst liability. I'm like, oh, I know. I'm working on it. I'm
Same.
working on it. But yeah, just that
Yeah.
mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, how that all intertwines with grandkids, permissions for grandkids, hey, are you allowed to, can I take your daughter to the park? Well, maybe you can, but just all the feelings, everything that kind of comes up with that is something that I'm really, really passionate about. Looking forward to talking about.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool.
I think that's going to be,
Yeah.
I'm excited for us to talk about that too. What about you, Carrie? Any topic coming up that you're
Oh,
excited about?
yes, I'm glad you asked me because we're going to be talking about community and finding your tribe. And for me, that has just been a lifesaver for me personally. You guys are all included in that, and how you just have come around me as friends. And I'm looking forward to that because I feel like for our age, our parents' age, and the young next generation, having community is the foundation of it all. I mean, if we don't have other people to come alongside of us, it's really difficult to do any of this parenting, grandparenting, any of it. So I'm looking forward to talking about that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we have so many good things coming up. In the next few episodes, we're going to be introducing ourselves, getting to know our stories. Because, I mean, the three of us have been through a lot. We could just have a podcast about what we've endured the past 25 years of our friendship and how we've come through it on the other side. And so hopefully even in that we'll offer some hope. And we want this to be a podcast of hope. We want this to be a podcast that's encouraging, that
Absolutely.
helps building relationships. And you might be listening going, who is this podcast for? Is it for old chicks like you, or is it for young moms? Yes. The answer is yes. We want to speak to you both. So if you are a daughter or daughter-in-law listening to this and you have kids, grab your mother or your mother-in-law and say, hey, listen to this podcast. If you are a mother or mother-in-law, grab your daughter-in-law, because we hope, again, we're going to even be conversation starters for you, that we can say things that maybe will get you talking to each other. That's our goal for this podcast. We hope at the end of the day, not only do we strengthen the relationship with our own children, our own grandchildren, but we encourage you to do that as well. Lastly, small deposits. We've got to talk about our own and encourage you to do the same. Alicia, have you made any small deposits with your family this week?
Well, this has kind of been a short week for me, but yes, my youngest daughter-in-law just had their second baby about 2 months ago, and she was a little less than that. She was getting ready to go back to work while she was on maternity leave. They also have a 2.5-year-old, both boys. She wanted to get all the stuff done in her house, getting things ready. He came early, so the room wasn't quite ready. She's trying to finish all this up, and she asked me if I would watch the baby for her for the day before she went back to work so that she could get some stuff done. And honestly, I did not really have time to watch the baby. And I always tell her, don't be afraid to ask, because I'll say no if I need to. But I didn't say no because one, I really wanted to spend time with this little baby. And two, I remember how hard that is, having multiple kids little and trying to get stuff done. And so I wanted to be able to, and it was, he was a baby. We did baby stuff. He took up a lot of the time, but I also was able to get a lot of stuff done. And it was just one day of my life. She's gotten him for eternity. So yeah, that was my small deposit this past week.
That's a good one. Yeah. What about you, Carrie?
Gosh, on the same lines, Carly's pregnant with her second, and Roy's, moving around, climbing everywhere. And we normally meet on Wednesdays. I was busy this week. And so instead of just saying, I can't do it this week, let me meet you next week, I remembered what it's like to have little ones. And so found out
Mm,
in my schedule, like a place where I can say, hey, I got this time on this day. Let me help you. Let me come over and, watch him for you while you take a nap or whatever. So it wasn't just, oh, I can't do it this day. It's where can I find time to help her? Remembering, like you said, Alicia, remembering how hard it is when they're young. So showing up where I can show up.
absolutely. And you guys are so fortunate. You live closer to your grandchildren
Yeah.
and children. My daughter-in-law and grandbabies and son are 4.5 hours away. And so mine was a little more practical. She called me. She has a kidney stone,
Oh,
daughter-in-law. And she's like, can you do an Instacart order for me? Because we have the membership. And so I ordered her some
Yeah.
supplements and things, but I also threw in like some muffins and some things for the kids just
yeah.
to maybe add a little help. So it doesn't take
That's
much,
great.
and it looks different for everyone. I mean, all of us aren't close by that we can run over and do that. I'm so jealous of that, honestly, but you do what you can. So never do we want
Mhm.
to make you feel guilty if you're in a different boat than us. But again, we want to encourage you. So excited you're here. Find us on social media. We're going to be posting on Instagram, Gray Roots Podcast. You can also find us individually. We all have our own Instagrams that we post. Carrie Oakley Miller, Alicia Warnicki. What's your Instagram handle, Alicia?
At True Grit Girl,
Are you True
Alicia
Grit?
Warnicki. True Grit Girl, Alicia Warnicki.
Yeah, True Grit Girl. And I'm Play Skillfully with Kathy Egger. So you can find us there. You can find us at Gray Roots Podcast, where we're going to be posting encouragement for you. We are so excited about this journey we are about to embark on together. Alicia, Carrie, any final words before we wrap up our first episode?
I'm just excited.
Dive in.
Same.
Let's
All
go.
right, let's go. Here we go, girls. Let's do this. Thanks for being
All
here,
right.
you guys.
See ya.